Hello everyone, welcome to Lisa Horton Crafts. My name is Natalia. Today I will show you how I've used one pass cotton stamp dies, and here are the dies. So for this I've used some of my inky backgrounds, which I've used with some inks, watercolor powders, ink sprays, pixie powders. So here I'm just choosing the paper and die cut. So here are all of the backgrounds, and also I've die cut some of the backgrounds and white card and pearlescent card. So here I'm adding blue inks to the card. So I've used Distress Oxide inks, I've used Salvage Patina, Speckled Egg and Cracked Pistachio. I'm using my brushes to blend the inks. And for this card I'm using pink colors, Spun Sugar and Kitsch Flamingo. So I'm adding more pink color to the bottom and gradually lighter color to the top. So I'm die cutting the backgrounds. Here I'm adding some water to the background and taking some of the excess away. So for those backgrounds I've decided to use some of my inks. This is Distress Archival inks, which are waterproof and permanent inks. So I'm adding those colors to the card. Of course you can also add those inks to dye and do different way. And here I've decided to add some splatters and some sparkle using EUPHORIA watercolors. And I'm adding some water to the paint, to the silver paint, and mixing up with the brush and adding splatters. So for this background I'm just using my Distress Oxide inks directly to the card, as you can see. And I've added a darker pink color. So I'm drying the card. And here I'm adding a light gold paint to the background. A little bit of splatter. And here I'm using a pink pearlescent paint. And I'm adding more splatters to the background. Here are all of my backgrounds. For this card I will use Hickory Smoke ink, and I'm applying directly on the top. And I'm continuing to add more inks to the cards, to the backgrounds. So for this card I've decided to use a white pigment ink. So I've changed my mind. So I've tried the card, and now I'm using Distress Archival inks, and I'm adding them to the top of this background. So I'm continuing to add more inks to the backgrounds. So here are all of my backgrounds which I've made, and some of them I've die cut in pearlescent card. So here is pearlescent card, and I'm adding some of the pink and yellow colors to this card. So for this card I also die cut little heart from nested hearts and a circle and die. And here I use this little heart and I use the die to emboss the image into the heart. And now I'm using essential words, stamps and dies, and I'm using the same ink, archival black ink, and I'm embossing the sentiment. So here I'm using some of the dies frame and the sentiment, and that I'm die cut. And here now I'm deciding how I'm gonna build this card. So I'm creating now a base card. So this card is slightly wider than 5 inches by 7. So by knowing, by adding the background to the card, I'm deciding on a size of the card. So I'm adding and layering the background to the card, slightly bigger, and here I'm adhering the background with 3D foam pads. So before gluing the background, I've cut out side of the little circle, just to put on the side of the background. So here I'm gluing the circle to the card. I'm adding some 3D foam pads to the little heart, and I'm adding to the circle with and also sentiment to the side. So I'm choosing those beautiful gemstones from Lisa, and I'm using yellow colors. So I'm gluing the gemstones to the background. I will be creating another card using this blue and purple background. Here I'm measuring the card for the card base, slightly smaller. And now I will use one of the die which comes from mini SLIMLINE SWIRLING daisy. So I'm using this frame, adhering to the card, and I'm die cutting. For this I will be using Christmas rose, which I've already stamped and heat embossed on vellum with white embossing powder, and also of die cut and add some inks to the sentiment hello, which comes from SLIMLINE set. So here I'm positioning the frame to the base card to the front, and I'm using pencil to mark where to add the background. So here's the background, and now I'm adding wet glue to the background and adhering to the card. So here I'm just checking the frame, and now I'm adding some of the 3D foam pads to the back of this frame. So I'm removing backing of the foam pads, adding a bit of wet glue to the back and adhering to the card, to the front of the card. Just choose a bigger flower, a Christmas rose, which I already heat embossed, and white embossing powder to the vellum. And I'm partly adding the glue to the back of the flower and adding some leaves. So as you can see, I'm adding flower back to the frame. There are now where the flower and leaves gonna be positioned. And here is the hello sentiment. Now I'm just looking where I'm gonna glue the sentiment to the flower, and I'm adding wet glue to the back and adhering the sentiment. adhering sentiment only to the flower. Now I will use little 3D foam pads and I will adhere them to the flower and to the sentiment. As you can see, I'm putting a flower sentiment back to the card just to know where to adhere the 3D foam pads. Now I'm removing the backing of the 3D foam pads using my pocket tool, and I'm adding some red glue to the top and partly to the end of the sentiment, and also I'm adding some of the edges to the flowers and leaves, and I'm adhering the flower and sentiment to the card. I'm using some of the purple gemstones and adding them to the background and to the center of the flower. Here I'm using bordered sheets sentiment, so I'm cutting all the way, and I'm cutting a bit more to make slightly more narrower. I'm adding the 3D foam pads to the back of the sentiment and adhering to the card. So here I will be using another card, and for this I'm using Happy Perfect You sentiments, stamps and dies, some die cut and gold, vellum and white card. Here I'm positioning the background to the card and creating a card base. I'm gluing the background to the card. Here I'm choosing one of the sentiments, and I'm using black card, so I'm using Versamark ink. So I'm stamping the sentiments a couple of times, and I'm using silver embossing powder and some of the sparkle silver embossing powder. I heat emboss the sentiments, and I'm cutting away one of the sentiment. Adhering the sentiment U and glitter and white card together. And now I will adhere the sentiment to the vellum. Here is the sentiment, and I'm adding some 3D foam pads to the back, and here I'm adhering the U word to the card and the sentiment. I've chosen some of the gemstones and I'm adhering them to the background. So here's the card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Please subscribe for more, and don't forget to hit notification bell for more video tutorials. Take care. Bye.